G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. I'm going to ask you to forgive me my pridefulness, but I am about to gloat and boast. My video killed the Facebook page, my video killed the Facebook page, my video killed the Facebook page. Yes it did, see? What Facebook page, I hear you ask? Well, apparently for 50 months, a bit over 4 years, there's been a page on Facebook styling itself Save Glen Innes from GISC. And the page has been run by an anonymous administrator. And 3 years ago, a bloke called David Allen Berg came to town, and he's made a lot of posts on the page, and he's become a notorious local agitator. A wannabe live wire in the community who's succeeded in alienating himself everywhere he's opened his mouth. I think it's fair to say that. Anyway, on Friday the 13th of October, I got a telephone call from the editor of the Glen Innes Examiner, seeking my response to suggestions that had been made by half a dozen people that I was responsible for this scurrilous Facebook page. Now, I initially thought, well, for somebody who knows I've got a YouTube channel but doesn't realise it runs on a mobile phone, if they think I've got a computer, if they think I've got a Facebook page, yeah, that could be a possibility because I have been known to be a bit of a socially active loudmouth in the past. And did you know that wild, unfenced swamp wallabies and kangaroos have a 0% bullshit tolerance from humans? Well, it's a fact. If they sense a slightest bit of bullshit, they just hop away. They won't talk to you. So I use the fact that they come and hang around with me as a character reference, you see. So let's go and check up on my claim to have been a bit of a social activist and loudmouth. We'll just go over to where I keep my records, and you'll see that what appears to be a bunch of saved newspapers actually turns out it's pages torn from newspapers. Opinion pages. Letters to the Examiner. May 4, 2010. Electric car not as carbon neutral as other options. Chris Wharton, Dundee. Gee, this one bundle, all by itself, that runs from November 25, 2005 to July 2008. That's a lot of letters to the editor for 3 years, to say nothing of all this other stuff when I wasn't quite so active. I'm pretty sure these ones, they came from a period where I averaged 18 letters printed per year. And the fact is I haven't submitted a letter to the Examiner for about 9 years. By the way, I've got photocopies of the originals too. Pays to keep records. So, why did I stop submitting letters to the editor, you ask? 2 reasons. On the one hand, my daughter bookmarked a thing called a YouTube channel onto my mobile phone, and I found that I could reach thousands of people worldwide without getting blocked by the National Party tendencies of the editor at the newspaper. So I just gave up on submitting letters. Let somebody else do it for a change. Okay, so yes, I have been a local loudmouth with a long track record, but I guess for somebody like Pat Urquhart, perhaps, who's only come to the town since after I stopped writing letters to the editor, they might not have known that. Didn't realise who they were dealing with, perhaps. Because I got used as a scapegoat, a whipping boy, to draw the heat off David Allenberg when Allenberg suggested that it was somebody in receipt of a disability support pension. Okay, so that was Friday the 13th I first heard about it. Wednesday the 18th, so I'd had 5 days to think about it, ask a few questions. I made a video I came home from town after talking to the editor of the newspaper when he told me in the bread shop that you've got a walking stick, therefore people think you're the person with a disability support pension who's doing it all. I drank 2 long necks of Coopers. This is a little stubby. And I made a video titled Facebook page Save Glen Innes from GISC, not me. Posted on the 18th here on Warble's On A Lot channel. In that video, I read Tuesday, October 17's Examiner article on social media anger, in which Alan Berg put the finger on somebody for having a disability support pension. So if you want to come up to speed on it, go to the earlier video and I'll read it to you. You'll also find that I make some observations about the page, which were related to me by various people, to the effect that although the page publishes vast swathes of material submitted by Pat Urquhart to the Glen Innes Examiner, the stuff was not printed. It's rejects. Pat Urquhart's rejects get posted on the Save Glen Innes site. But Pat Urquhart never personally posted on the page. So whoever was administering the site obviously had access to all of Pat Urquhart's rejected letters, the stuff that wasn't good enough for submission. So the administrator, the anonymous, cowardly, gutless, disgusting, cancerous administrator, published that stuff. Who would have access to it, I asked. And I reminded everybody that it's not possible to ask a defamatory question. So on Friday, when I went to town a couple of days later, I was told that someone had posted a link from my video to the Save Glen Innes from GISC Facebook page, but the anonymous administrator had deleted the link. Then another person, a fellow called Cole Pike, who has a Glen Innes Progress page on Facebook, he posted a link to my video because, you know, he apparently liked it. Thanks, Cole. I've got maybe an extra 100 views because of that. And yeah, that was pretty interesting to hear on Friday. I didn't hear much. Views slowly climbed over the weekend. No extra special news on Monday. But on Tuesday night when I got home, on the thread under the video, there was a comment by Kay Sanders. Now, I will read it to you. This represents the people or Glen Innes, a dirty little town which has no respect for people who do not agree with what is said. It is full of drug addicts who leave their filthy needles laying around where kids play. Council are dictators, and the Cole Pike who put up this foul-mouthed video is just showing what type of people live here. To me, it sounds like he himself never got any further than primary school, and a lot of what he said about a lady on here isn't true and can be sued for putting untruths on video, which I will inform her of tonight. Well, I replied, Kay Sanders, thanks. Go away and learn a bit of law before you start trying to threaten people with lawsuits. Part 1, it is impossible at law to commit defamation, slander or libel by asking a question, and I haven't said or asserted anything about your friend. I have asked how certain things came to be regarding a Facebook page being run by a gutless, cowardly, slanderous, libelous, defamatory scumbag, which habitually pads itself out with unpublished letters, which a wannabe has had rejected for publication when submitted to the Glen Innes Examiner. Part 2, while the truth of an allegation is not a valid defence at law against a charge of defamation in New South Wales, public interest is a complete defence at law in New South Wales against such charges. And then, as she claimed that I hadn't finished primary school, I indulged myself by pointing out that not only did I matriculate in 1978, in 1983 I got a distinction in the Nurses Registration Board final exam, and my last position of employment was registered nurse in charge of the Vegetable Creek Hospital at Emmaville, where I nursed old Mrs. Urquhart from Ashford. And I don't recall any daughter, nor any daughter-in-law, making any kind of regular visitations. So if Pat Urquhart is an old local from Emmaville, she must have been somewhere else 30 years ago. An old local went away, perhaps. So anyway, on Wednesday when I went into town, I was greeted with the news that I'd done pretty well with my YouTube video because the obnoxious Facebook page had been deleted, completely deleted, just taken down entirely. And according to the Examiner, they'd interviewed David Allenberg, and he said that I probably knew who the operator was. Okay. Well, yesterday's Examiner carries this little gem. New productive site to open, Facebook page closes. David Allenberg, thorn in council's side. He denies being the administrator of the site on which he posts frequently. The controversial Facebook page devoted to criticising Glen 7 Council has been closed. Users going to the site are now greeted with the message, sorry, this content isn't available at the moment. David Allenberg, the most prominent user of the site and a thorn in council's side, said the quote owner had decided to take it down and replace it with a more quote productive site. Did this mean a less negative, more positive tone, the Examiner asked. Quote, productive was the word he used, responded Mr. Allenberg. The taking down of the site follows severe criticism of it by prominent business people in Glen Innes, who at their Business in Glen forum called it, quote, cancerous, quote, negative, quote, disgusting, and, quote, destructive. On top of that, Glen Innes 7 Council has taken legal advice about getting the site closed down. The council is to discuss the matter in the closed to the public part of its meeting on Thursday evening. Intense debate about the identity of the mystery man or woman behind the site rages in Glen Innes. Mr. Allenberg said at the Business in Glen Innes meeting that it was a disability support pensioner. This turned attention to Chris Wharton, who uses a walking stick and who is well known around the town. Mr. Wharton posts lively videos on YouTube, one of the latest of which is a selfie in which he denounces Mr. Allenberg vigorously on camera. He has harsh words for floaties, non-local people who move to Glen Innes, bracket like Mr. Allenberg, and others, including the council's general manager. There he is. He's a floatie. He's the most prominent floatie in town. The definition of a floatie is they did not go to the local kindergarten. They floated into town from somewhere else later on, and because they've pulled up stakes and left one location, it's about 1,000% easier for them to decide to float out again from Glen Innes than it is for anybody who's been here for generations. That's what a floatie is. Didn't grow up here, didn't go to school here, come here for some other reason, chances are will not be buried in the cemetery. The way you can tell a floatie from a new settler is the new settlers are buried in the cemetery. My mother's been here since 1959. If she's buried in the cemetery, she will become a new settler. Until then, she's a floatie. 10 years ago, she entertained the notion of floating off back to Sydney where she had one sister, or to the mid-north coast of New South Wales where she had another sister. She decided not to float out again. But if she had, then we would have all been totally correct to have withheld our judgment for the past 57 years. The harsh words I have about floaties are reserved for the agitational loudmouth floaties who come here because they like the place so much, and as soon as they get here they want to make changes to make this place resemble wherever the hell they left because they couldn't make a go of it back there, and that's why they ran away. Those floaties give me the shits. Especially when we know they're going to sell up and retire and go away somewhere else, and we get stuck with their changes. To continue, Mr. Wharton denied in the video that he was behind the Facebook site. He said he didn't have the technological ability or the interest. Mr. Allenberg said that Mr. Wharton probably knew the, quote, owner, unquote. In fact, nobody owns the Facebook page except Facebook, but it would have an administrator who controls it. The council isn't saying what will be discussed at Thursday's closed session. It is not known if the council has put legal pressure on Facebook, though Facebook is usually very loath to close pages down. The night the page closed, this bloke said that Chris Wharton probably knew the owner. I submit that David Allenberg is acknowledging that everything I questioned was right in my previous video, and I further submit that the only reason the page was taken down was to prevent people from watching my first video, cross-checking with everything that's been published for the last 4 years on the page, and coming to the conclusion that we now know who the anonymous, gutless, cowardly, slanderous, libelous, defamatory, destructive, cancerous, evil person is who was administering that page. David Allenberg has told us that I probably know who the owner is. Thank you for that, David. Didn't realise you had it in you, damn dumb prick. Which is to say, I would have thought you'd have had the guts to have tried to protect your co-conspirator. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Put that in your little pipe and smoke it. Video killed your Facebook page. My video killed your Facebook page. My video killed your Facebook page. Ciao.